life living and making a living can sometimes wear us out, grind us down, and dull our senses. So for a keen mind and a sharp contributive edge that can make it all easier and better and more productive, let's take some time to sharpen our axe. Stay with us right now for Life Talk.
Hello, I'm Gina Fitt, and you've either surfed to or purposely selected Life Talk with Bern Moses. Welcome to another in our series of ongoing verbal essays brought to you in this television format. It's truly a pleasure to have you with us today. Bern, last time I think you issued a small challenge to me. We were talking about developing a purpose and the importance of having a set of guidelines or a philosophy or beliefs about who you are and how you want to live your life, what's important to you, at least some area to start from and focus towards. And so I've been pondering that.
Not a small task, by the way.
Not a small task.
Major task.
Thanks
okay.
very much. Keeping me up at nights. Anyway, you also mentioned that maybe 1 in 1,000 people or less.
If that.
If that,
yeah.
Have
Tragic.
taken the time, and I want to spend a few minutes and read to you the very rough draft that I'm working on, and maybe you could help me with it. But before I do that, could you distinguish for our audience the difference between a mission statement and a purpose?
I think but essentially a purpose is a very brief definition. It's something that we discern. Some people have been led to believe that it's out there and we must find it. And I tell you, that may take a lifetime. And so I think we have to get busy saying, all right, who am I? What direction am I heading? How do I want to identify myself to my future? What kind of thumbprint do I want to leave on the world? And it's a statement that is confined. I think we addressed this last week. I confine it to more or less an isosceles triangle so that there's a balance in it. And it would have to be based on love, as opposed to fear, certainly.
Right.
You know? And because of the challenges that lie ahead of us and the things that we have to accomplish, we must be willing to prepare. And so a purpose statement would be a statement that would include our willingness or our form, if you would, that we're going to take in our preparation to accomplish what we want. And then there has to be contribution in it in order to be in concert with love, otherwise nothing is going to happen.
Okay.
I think we live in an unfortunate circumstance where the emphasis in our society has been put on competition. That's what our young people have heard, that's what we hear in the marketplace. You got to compete, you got to be a winner, you know. And tragically, competition tends to create mediocrity. Because, except in sports, as an exception, but in the socio-economic environment, contribution seems to be the thing that accelerates people quicker than anything else. For example, if you're competing, all you have to do is be a little bit better than the other guy at whatever you're participating in, and you're the star, you're the champ, you're number one. Where in truth, if you're contributing, you may get 3 or 4 or 500% better than that person. Not that you're competing with them, but you're exhibiting what can be done. At the risk of being presumptuous, some years ago, I think it was back in 79 and 80, I went into a funeral preparation business. That's not exactly right. Anyway, we had an office in Dallas, Texas, and I went in to kind of create from scratch presentation, concepts, procedures, policies that would make a difference in a business that was having trouble with its management. A lot of salespeople, no managers. Something was amiss because without leaders, without managers, there's a stagnation. And so I went in there with no intention of examining what other people were doing, but to contribute. Okay. Within about 6 months, and this was a 27-year-old company, within about 6 months, our office was doing 300% more business than the number 2 office in the nation. Now, if I was competing, trying to identify myself by being a winner, I could have done much less business and been, you know,
a winner,
the champ. Yeah. But we were disregarding what they were doing and just seeing how much we could do to contribute. and sending out the data that we were developing and the scripts and the structure and what have you. And a lot of people were very suspicious. A lot of people were put off by it, but a lot of people benefited by it. And we got to the point within a year and 3 months, somewhere in that neighborhood, where contrary to the norm, we were getting 80% of our business out of 65% of the people. Now, if you put the math to that, that's possible. It's very extraordinary. It's about 300% better than the norm, which is exactly the lead that we had. Now, gradually, as people picked up on some of these systems, they were elevated. Okay, and that's what the problem. So contribution is the key, not competition. If you can imagine, if you get a whole group of people together who are like-minded, they're on the same track, if you would, and they're contributing to that environment and to their peers, how much more could be accomplished? I mean, and we don't think in those terms too typically. And so it's based on love, the willingness to prepare. I believe we said last week the will to win doesn't mean anything. You have to have the willingness to prepare, whatever that means, toward the fulfillment of your ideal. And then, of course, the willingness to contribute. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to read yours. This is not going to be a battle of statements of purpose, but I'd like to have you read yours, and then we'll examine how it might fit in that, and I know it does already. Okay. These things are in it, but you may have extended it too far. The mission then comes after you've determined what it is you're going to pursue. And then you begin to have a mission statement, which is different in this, and would probably be more extensive. A mission statement would be more specific, more in line with what you might normally call goals, which I prefer to call pursuits for a whole variety of reasons which you're not going to go into tonight. But if you don't mind doing that, and then we'll examine it from that.
Okay, so the purpose needs to be somewhat global in nature.
Pardon?
Your purpose has to be somewhat global in nature.
If indeed that's your intent. It could be as, well, I'm not going to say small or minor, as just running a family. I have a daughter who all of her life, from the time she was a little child, her purpose seemed to be a mom, and a great one. Okay, that's what she wanted to be, a mom. Now, a lot of people might write that off as insignificant, but I'll tell you, she's got, I think it's 4 children with one about to be born, and she's magnificent. And I think with that purpose in mind, she was tried to be careful in the selection of her mate who would allow her that. You know what I mean? In other words, that was the agreement. And so they're home-educated children. They're all born at home. I mean, she's a professional, you know what I mean? And very fulfilled. And is that global? It could be, because one of those kids with this nurturing, with this love, with this direction, with the responsibility she's exhibited to those children, we can't tell what they might accomplish. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? The preparation that's going into that mind is way beyond the norm. I mean, not that it's all right, but I haven't been able to see anything wrong. You know what I mean? In other words, nothing you could criticize, make judgments, say you shouldn't be doing it that way. It's kind of extraordinary when you think about it, you know? So that purpose could be there too, or it could be indeed global, really making a difference. With mine, I don't know. I think too, a properly written purpose could be appropriate if it was just in a small community, or indeed if it was global. It could be the same phraseology, which I've attempted to do with mine, because there's no limitations to it. It's not something you're intending to do or accomplish. It's just about who you are. So it's a little less grandiose, if you would, or broad than a mission statement might be. I know, and we have a thing in our business called the Command Commission. Rather than just mission, we call it Command Commission. And it's pretty specific about what we're up to, much more so than the purpose statement is. Okay. But anyway, go ahead and read that. Okay. And then some of your comments you made before were pretty incisive. I really appreciated them. So we should be able to have a great conversation.
Okay, great. Well, roughly it goes to be continually pursuing, acquiring, and sharing information that will help people to be more powerful in their lives so that they can communicate more effectively, love more deeply, forgive more easily, have more patience, more understanding, empathy, and compassion, to bring them greater joy and peace.
That's it? Mm-hmm. Okay. The word sharing is in there. Mm-hmm. May I suggest, and this is kind of out there in the world, but sharing I would change to conveying.
Okay.
Because there's a semantical thing there that if you're going to share something, semantically it feels and means that you're going to have less than you otherwise would have had. You know, like if I share a piece of pie, that's a very noble thing for me to do, but everyone knows that I'm going to share that with you, but I'm going to have less than I otherwise would have had. There's the contribution of it. See? But an idea, love, awareness can be conveyed and expand what you have.
Right.
I mean, actually, when you convey, you grow. So sharing is not perhaps the proper term.
Okay.
And I would coach it on that one. Let's take one sentence at a time, because it's hard to absorb all that on the air. So just let's do one sentence at a time.
You want me to start over again? Okay. You'd be continually pursuing, acquiring, and conveying information that will help people to be more powerful in their lives. So that's the first one.
Okay, why do you want other people to be more powerful in their lives?
Well, because there are people in my life who are important to me,
Good.
including my children,
Good.
my brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest of 9. I feel a responsibility to be an example
Good.
and help to them. Friends that are important to me.
Peers.
And also, peers. My whole life, I've had something in me that's reached out for people. And there's a deep desire there to see other people succeed, and mostly to find happiness.
And you know that if they are, your life will be happier, more fulfilled. So that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That's great. Good.
All
Okay. Second sentence.
Okay, and so I'm defining it as somewhat here, what kind of information, I guess, or what the purposes of that information would be to help people communicate more effectively, love more deeply, forgive more easily, have more patience, understanding, empathy, and compassion, and thus bring them greater joy and peace.
Okay. Good. Only thing I would see, that's right on. The only thing I would suggest is you work at shortening it to a sentence.
Okay, instead of 2.
Yeah. You got 2 there? Good lengthy sentences, too. For that's right. Yeah, and it doesn't make this right. This is just one of the drafts of many that it finally emerged to, and it's been about the same for 15 years.
Okay.
But in sense, it's very comparable. It's to wonder. My sense is that I have realized more things just by wondering and watching and pondering over things than I have from various sources. And it's not that the gift is inside, it's just it's a thing I call collative thinking. You put this together with that and you ponder, and pretty soon you go, oh, I see, if indeed you're looking for those kinds of answers. To wonder, to examine, not to take anything for granted, to challenge everything, and not to indict anything, you know what I mean, but to challenge, and I call it taking an obtuse position about it and say, wait a minute, let's take a look at that, and if it's fine, fine. If it's not, how can we adjust it? Anyway, to examine, experience. See, life is experience. More experiences you have, the more life you have. And enjoy. You got to enjoy. And enjoy has a lot of different meanings. It's not just happy, but to enjoy, to appreciate, to gain, to enjoy. But from my existence, okay, however long that might be, I feel lucky to go this far. When I was 18, I knew I'd never make 21. When I was 21, I think, I can't believe it, I'll never make 30. But I've always been, I think I know what's happening here. But anyway, my existence, in order to better understand. So I may not understand, but to better understand. You allow yourself ignorance in that. See, there has to be some consciousness of ignorance in all of this so that you can celebrate that, because that's the beginning of wisdom. Once we know, we've got a problem. And we can never say that's it, because boy, it's tough. But to better understand how I might, doesn't mean I will, but how I might enrich and enliven those around me. We're very similar in that pattern. And I think it's because of this that you've been so committed to doing what we do. Most people would not do what you've done. People don't understand it. We come here volitionally without pay, and it's okay for me, because I think I get a lot out of it, but I can't measure what you get. You know what I mean? Right. I just appreciate the fact that you've done it. But enliven those around me, okay? Now, around me, what does that mean? Could be 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3,000, 20 or 30,000, or 2 or 3 million, and depending upon how we evidence all these things, and thereby warranting my being, which satisfies my libido. So if I can warrant my being, and having been, that satisfies libido. So there's a lot in there. But it is brief. And like I say, this is not a duel of purpose statements, but just something that people can eavesdrop and say, I see what it. Now, I would say this, that if someone wants to call in, I might as well throw this down here now while we're here. If someone wants to call in, our number, oops, I'm not going to make a good mark, 916-366-8749. We can send them a copy of this and of yours, and they can kind of weave those two together if they like, because I tell you, this is no small task.
No,
I find
it's not.
that most people write and ponder and fuss and strain over it, and they get frustrated by it. And besides, a lot of people don't want to really do it, because have you sensed that as you write this, it's kind of like you realize there are parameters you're going to have to live within?
Well, that was one of the things when I first started developing this, I was speaking to myself in a microphone so I could think about it while I was driving. And I let you listen to the tape, but some of the things that started going through my mind included that, well, it's got to be somewhat generic in nature. Otherwise, it's going to limit me, because there are a lot of things I know I have to do with my life. I mean, I have to take care of my family and put food on the table, and I want to, go and travel and see the world and learn about other people and experience things and increase my understanding of the world around me. So I started thinking it has to be, well, and that's why I use the word global, not in the sense of the earth, but in the sense of in my life, somewhat general and generic, but still focused enough that it keeps me going in the direction that I want to go, so I'm not wasting time every day on things that are not important.
Exactly. And when you are, that's what you're doing, and perhaps you're taking a little vacation, but then again, you have to be careful about going outside your parameters, which we'll discuss in a moment. That's pretty tricky.
Well, it's not only that you want to take a vacation, or a lot of times we're off purpose because other people pull us off purpose, and we let them. Everyone has an agenda for us, how they'd like us to spend our time on their behalf. And we could run around the whole day doing a million things. Accommodating other people, other circumstances and conditions. Yeah,
and it's a step over here when, out of all of this, and perhaps we can spend another week or two, we can talk some. Once you start broadcasting to the world your intention, your purpose, and your commitments, and you just get rigid about keeping them, a lot of that stops. Now, you can't exclude people. You have to include them in your process, but they have to come in your time, not their time. Otherwise, I'll tell you, I found years ago that I was accommodating people in circumstances, and when I stopped doing that, when I established the circumstances and people were accommodating me, all I had to do was be have my conscience involved. I had to be noble and have some integrity about it, but it was amazing how people just leave you alone. And it really, really is effective. But yeah, you're on the right track there. It's just a matter of keep writing it and thinking about it, smoothing it out, making it pretty, making some little signs.
You just said something, Vern, that I think is really important. And you used a word that's a very important word. Anyway, to me, has significant meaning. And that word is integrity. Like having structural integrity in a building means that it's sound, that it won't fall down, that all the pieces fit together properly, and there's strength and unity and cohesion. And oftentimes, we don't have integrity in our lives.
That includes flexibility too, though.
Yes, it does.
You got to be flexible.
Because earthquakes can come and all those kinds of good things. And I think that developing a good purpose statement can help you to find that
everything
integrity.
Else kind of fall in line.
Yeah.
It really does. And without it, I tell you, goals, all my life I've seen people setting goals and what have you, and they're always in different directions. If this one doesn't work, they're over here somewhere. And that doesn't happen once you define a purpose, and that should be your primary thing. It's not a goal, there's no question about it. Now, within that there can be intentions, but before the intentions occur, once you've defined your purpose, you also have identified parameters for your life. That you just know somehow you've got to play in here, otherwise your purpose falls flat. It's kind of like if this was my purpose, I'm going to go over here, if this was my purpose and these are my parameters, that this has to be pretty firm. But if I keep moving these out a little bit at a time, by violating the principles that come within that, pretty soon my life's going to crumble, and I don't even know why. Well, I do. We do know. There are no surprises. It's just that without the purpose, we kind of play out. What I'm saying is if you, in a moment of time or in an evening or a day, you get over here and you get off purpose, then pretty soon what we're doing is accommodating that. There's something in the mind goes, okay, I got a little liberty here. And pretty soon you're over here, and then this goes out here, and boy, it's flat. But a clearly defined purpose establishes parameters after which you define, remember we talked about pursuits as opposed to goals? See, what is it you're going after? What is it you're pursuing? And there should be, it's not the pursuit of happiness, it's the happiness in pursuit once it has been established because it's based on love. Okay, what are the pursuits? Now, I recommend 4 distinct categories, and you talked about it earlier this evening. I mean, some of these things you were hitting right on. The social secular facet of your life, okay, the spiritually emotional. As you mentioned something about your religious training and your background, but the spiritual, emotional, the physical tangible, and your vocational facet of your life, or avocational, those hobbies and activities that you take part in order to pay the community back and what have you. I would think that's enough differentiation. But again, it takes time. See, what social, secular pursuits do I have? What does that mean? In other words, where am I going to live? Am I going to be married or single? If single, how am I going to manage that? There's a social, secular facet of our life, and yet it can't be in conflict with the spiritual, emotional. As you want to stay in a love mode as much as possible, your spiritual direction by your church is clear. I mean, I think you're not troubled by a whole lot of things with that. I mean, you seem real clear with it. Physical, tangible. In other words, what kind of home you're going to live in, what kind of car you're going to drive, what kind of clothes you're going to wear, this type of thing. And then vocational, avocational. It seems clear to me that you've made some distinct choices vocationally. I mean, you seem to be a career professional salesperson. That's your intention. Not in the sense that a lot of people think about selling, but really contributive in all of that. And my sense is that. Physical, tangible, apparently you've done very well in that area. I don't know how much of it's on the budget plan, but I'll tell you, you had that great, you seem to be doing well there. Spiritual's no problem. The social secular is probably a challenge. Family, job, all this kind of conflict. But with purpose, here's the thing. You make lists in each one of these and you pick the one most important thing, and that's a focal point. Okay, those are your pursuits. Okay? And out of that, you determine a mission statement. See, the mission statement would be about this. My mission is to acquire, to have, to achieve, to grant, whatever that happens to be, and include comments about each one of these that are very specific. That's a mission statement. Okay. It's within that, within the parameters. Okay. And then you begin to develop your plans for doing that. And if you remember, we've done this before, but if you stay inside those parameters, after a while, the social secular, the physical tangible, they begin to overlap. They get in harmony. Where otherwise, if you don't have purpose, it gets real confusing. You know what I mean? It's just like every time you make a move, you should be doing something else. You know that feeling? Yeah. Boy, I see it all the time. And so that's why the purpose is so important. And then determine your pursuits, and then develop a mission statement about that. And then after that, begin to make plans on how you're going to accomplish it.
And that's why I was talking about having integrity, because when you have integrity in your life,
right,
nothing is in conflict.
Right. Well, that integrity is going to be right in here, and it's going to be yours.
Right.
That's one thing about a purpose. You have parameters established that will be in concert with, in all probability, every religious factor you've got, every spiritual inclination, your conscience. That's a nice thing about purpose, because it's based on love. You know what I mean? And so you won't be violating. You won't be out here all the time.
I think it's important for some of our viewers who may not have caught previous programs to make a distinction here between purpose and goals, since you brought that word up earlier, that goals are
Intentions,
vary,
things
right.
you're going after to pursue. I don't like the word goal typically because it was what it does to our subconscious mind, and I prefer the word pursuit, which is essentially the same thing. Because a goal,
Generally, something has a date or a deadline on
Yeah.
it, and
Very
by which it will
specific.
be accomplished.
Uh-huh.
And there's value to those, but you have to understand the purpose of them and how they, if you try to use them in a broad sense, how that might limit you and actually take you off purpose.
a lot of the goal setting that I've heard about and techniques about a specific goal and the time to get it and what have you, usually fades quickly with people, because if they miss a few of those marks or if they don't accomplish, the Sisyphus syndrome sneaks in, and perhaps we can discuss that in the next show, because it's been a long time since we've covered some of these things. But a pursuit is like chasing that chicken in a corn patch. Just some fun analogies that we can do with that. I do want to say we got some progress in our lives. We recently had a nice write-up in Sacramento Magazine. We were pleased about that. And that too brought along a website. If people want to know more about what we do and how we do it and why we do it and where we do it, the who, what, where, why, and how, we have a website now. One is at Sacramento City. I mean, you can't beat that. Sacramento City, easy to remember, .com / Burn. What's the last name?
Moses.
Yeah. And you punch that in, and you come up with a website and all kinds of good information.
Wonderful.
We had a lot of fun with that. A fellow by the name of Scott Johnson has put us on Sacramento City. He's captured that as a domain and has contributed this space because of our association, the things he's gleaned and benefited. So, I feel privileged to have that site, and to
That's
have that
great.
to work with. Also, if people will call once again, 916-366-8749, or if you're outside that area code, 800, and be our guest at 661-3490. We'll send you a statement of purpose. Oh, and if you're the first 6 that call, we'll send out 2 complimentary tickets to a free essay. Just be our guest, come and spend a synergistic period of time with like-minded people.
Great, that's wonderful. And you know what? I think it would also be really nice if people have the beginnings of a purpose statement,
Oh.
or something they're working on, or something they've developed and they want to share it with us. We'd love to get those. You can send them to us, and we'll read them on the
We'll
air.
read them on the air, and it'll be contributive. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Bern.